Price. Next to me, I got Kari. Underneath, we got Candy. And then joining us, we have Adam this week. How is everybody's week going?
All good, all good. Seems like just last night, Megan, you were on the show that I do, so it's like
Right.
reversal. And I mean, it's always a pleasure, to be on here with you, extraordinary ladies
Yes.
talking women's sports.
I really enjoyed it and look forward to coming back on because I most definitely will. I'm just sharing the show right now to a couple of places real quick.
My
So,
week started out really great. I'm going to talk quick talk. Sunday, I was out in Fort Myers. I got to see the Boston Red Sox take on the Minnesota Twins. So that tells me that spring is here. And what leads to spring? March Madness. And then the
right.
selection shows. So, like, Sunday was a really great. I mean, and we got home just in time. We were a little bit late to start the men's show, but we got to see most of it. So, I mean, exciting times right now, right?
Right, exciting times. And so, have you are you ready to announce where you're going to be during the Final Four, or no? You're not ready.
Ooh, Final four for the women's. I'm going to be right. I'm guessing. I'm hoping either courtside or up in one of the stands taking pictures. So yes, Scott and I got credentialed for the women's Final four, so we get to see the final weekend to see who's going to
That's
be
so
there.
exciting. Yeah, that's really exciting. So it was a really interesting year. I feel like for NCAA women's basketball, there has been some parity. I know it was really, really messy for the committee this year as far as seating. I think on the women's side, there wasn't really a question of who should be there. I don't think there were teams that were let in that we were questioning. It was the seating that was really messy. So I guess let's get started first. And we're going to break down the women's bracket region by region. Let's start with Spokane 1.
I do want to mention that I did a little research, and I read that the number one seed has won the women's tournament 23 times since 1994, including
Wow.
last year. So I thought that was kind of interesting. I'm like, I gotta lead off with that one because you get
Yeah,
those interesting
absolutely.
stats, right?
Absolutely.
So the question is, will this season UCLA women's basketball finally break through and advance to the Final Four? The Bruins have advanced as far as the Elite Eight twice, back in 99 and 2018, and the Sweet 16 9 times, most recently last season, but have never played the final weekend. They only dropped 2 games this season, but both times was to crosstown rival USC. But the Bruins got their revenge in the Big Ten championship game, overcoming a 13-point deficit to the Trojans to reclaim the number one seed. So they got the number one seed, which is the first time that they've ever done that. So it also marks the Bruins also have reached the 30 win mark for the first time in their program history.
That's exciting.
That is exciting. That is exciting. So let's face it, the number one seed UCLA place will play the winner of the UC San Diego or Southern winner. Then we have
And that
uh,
matchup's interesting. I think that Southern probably has a chance. If this is their first time in the tournament, is that right?
mhm,
Yeah.
As
So
long, as
yes.
long
I
as
think they have a chance at least winning their first four matchup, and then unfortunately, we know how the 116 matchup goes.
Sure. I mean, it's called the only ever time that a 16 has beaten one is when Harvard knocked off Stanford, and it's
Right.
pretty cool to see UC San Diego in their inaugural year in the Big West Conference making it, tomorrow, the NCAA Women's Championship after completing the transition from Division Two over to Division One, and it also happened with the men's team. So pretty cool what's going on out in San Diego.
Agree.
Agreed. Number 8 Richmond takes on number 9 Georgia Tech. Adam, what do you
I
think of that game?
I
I'm
had
gonna
a chance to see Georgia Tech at the ACC tournament, and I will say that's a very tough defensive team. They did well. I don't know that I necessarily expected them to be in the semis, but they definitely made it out of the first couple of rounds, and they did well. So we'll see.
I like Georgia Tech in this game over Richmond. You mentioned Megan, you were there. You and Jen were there in Greensboro at the ACC Women's Tournament. I'm kind of jealous, but Georgia Tech is a strong team out there in the ACC. So I think Georgia Tech finds a way to knock off the Richmond Spiders from the A10.
Agree.
Number 5 Ole Miss versus number 12 Ball State. It's a little bit, I think, of a, I mean, not a mismatch, but let's face it. Ole Miss, they're tough. They're having a good season. Ball State, not so much.
Right.
I think the interesting matchup is the next one. Number 4 Baylor against number 13 Grand Canyon.
Same.
That could be a Cinderella because Grand Canyon, the number 13 seed, enters the tournament having won 30 in a row.
Wow.
So it's the longest active Division I winning streak. So Baylor, beware.
Right, and this is not the Baylor of years before. Obviously, we know Mulkey is at LSU. Now, this is, what is this, her third season with LSU? Is that right? So the first season that Kim wasn't there at Baylor, they still had a good portion of her system in place, and they were still really successful. And this has been a declining year for them. I really like Grand Canyon for this upset too, just off the momentum that they have.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. Number 6 Florida State versus number 11 George Mason.
So this is where it gets real messy in the bracket. So the teams that we see come out of the smaller conferences are obviously maybe teams that people don't watch all year long. And I was actually turned on to George Mason by one of my co-hosts for the spaces that I do for women's basketball. Lauren turned me on to George Mason and said that it is an incredibly tough defensive team, that they gave Maryland all they could handle when they matched up in that game. So, yeah, I might be going with George Mason on this one.
I'm not. I'm
okay.
Going,
That's okay.
Homer. I've got to go with the Florida State Seminoles. I mean, Florida State has always had a solid women's basketball team down there in Tallahassee, and I could see Florida State making a small run, but in due time we will tell.
The only issue they had in their conference tournament was they had an injury, and so health will be a question at this point.
Number 3 LSU versus number 14 San Diego State. I don't know that you can go
also an injury issue right now. They got Big Fours out. She was seen in a boot, which is Flage, and then also Anisha Morrow. Oh, Kitty. I love the surprise guests. I love them. Health will be an issue. I know we heard Kim say that both of those ladies would be available for the big tournament. They got shut down in the conference tournament. I don't know if that was smoke and mirrors coming from Kim, and any coach would do that in that situation. I feel like they would say, hey, everybody's going to be available, whether they know that or not. Sure. I think they play. I don't know to what level.
Well, isn't it kind of a side there? Isn't the intention that everybody would play that's your wish and hope as a coach, is your players are ready for the next game, the next step, whatever. Mm-hmm. So I don't think I've never seen that as a smoke and mirror thing, more as that legitimately what they are wanting is you're wanting that your players to be there. If not, it'll be next man up or woman up in this case.
I can agree with that. I don't know if it's probably more towards Kim. I just don't know if she would shoot it to us straight or not. That's kind of my thing. But I will shout out Flage, though. She said that she's going to donate like 5 million, I think, and towards
Yes.
debt for some
Yes.
people, Louisiana families.
That's right.
So that, I mean, that's what you do. Yeah, that's what you do with that platform right there. That's what it's all about. You know, she's obviously successful outside of basketball as well, and to have the ability to give back like that is really special at that age.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I'll say this about Kim Mulkey. She is an incredible coach. One of the top, in my opinion, one of the top 5 coaches right now with women's college basketball. She knows how to get the job done. We know what we saw that when she won a national championship at Baylor and at LSU. She loves the fans. I believe what I heard is she's purchasing student tickets, for all the students, to come watch the first and second round games at the TMAC, and it's like, go, Coach Mulkey. I mean, she wants to see that place filled, and I don't blame her.
Yeah, no, I love that. That's really awesome.
Back to that 5 million, I actually was going to bring this up later, but since we're here now, she has teamed up with Experian. So there's 5,000 people that is going to benefit from this 5 million. Experian has also thrown in that for every game they win, we'll put another $100,000 towards her fund. So I think that's to me, that's pretty impressive for the generation that people are very easy to label as not, empathetic,
Right.
doesn't work, all this. And, that's my son's generation, Bunny's generation, and to see those type of stories come out,
Right.
It just makes me feel really good, especially for the generation that is being normally shut down as being not a part of things, but they very much are, and they're very much making an impact.
Agreed.
Sorry to jump in on that, but I thought since we were there, I might as well just put a little plug in that I planned.
Oh, yeah. No, it's all good. It's all good. So we all know that I'm a Big Ten girl, right? Like I'm from Wisconsin. And yes, Wisconsin is out. I get that. But I just want to shout out to the Big Ten because we had 12 teams in the field. The next matchup happens to be one of those Big Ten matchups. Number 7 Michigan State versus number 10 Harvard. Now I don't think Michigan State can rest their laurels. Harvard is not a walkover team, so they've got to be careful.
They have a young lady over there, Harmony Turner, and she's just incredible. So I definitely not an easy first round matchup by any means.
And
no.
And the Ivy League is no fluke. Not only did Harvard make it, but also Columbia. So it's like the Ivy League, we know how smart they are when it comes to academics, but on the basketball court, that league is just as talented as any league in the country.
I agree.
And to wrap up that region, number 2 North Carolina State versus number 15 Vermont.
So North Carolina State played in the championship game for their conference tournament, lost handedly to Duke. It was definitely a double-digit differential there. They did not look the same in the second half. Injuries could be an issue for NC State. Their superstar, Azra James, former Gamecock, actually, slid over to NC State last year, I believe, so that she could have more starting minutes. And she hit the ground running. She's amazing to watch. But they have some other really good players on that team. They're really stout at the center position. Both of the starter and the young lady that comes off the bench are very good centers. And then they run with 4 guards. So it's fast paced. But I do think that, Duke kind of showed us how to beat them. So it depends on the matchup, but I mean, I think they get out of this particular matchup, but I don't know if I see them in the Elite 8. Maybe we'll see.
I'll agree with you, Megan. NC State is no team that you don't want to mess with when it comes to the ACC. Strong team, like you mentioned. Lost to Duke in the ACC championship finals in Greensboro, and they want to do it for K out. you look what you look at what a lot. She was an inspiration for a lot of ladies, and do it for KL. Why not?
I like that. All right. Well, we will slide over to the Birmingham region. We're going to go Birmingham 2. So your number one seed out of there, no surprise, South Carolina. I think the surprise really was whether they were going to be the number one overall or were they going to still be just a number one seed. And so they didn't get the number one overall. I do think that it's kind of questionable. I don't mind UCLA getting the overall because when you put it pen to paper, I don't know that UCLA had a big loss like SC did versus UConn. That 29-point differential was huge. The way they lost at home made an impact on that decision, I believe. And then they've already met on the hardwood once this season, and UCLA won that by 15. So I don't mind UCLA getting that. I just think that South Carolina hit their stride in a different part of the season, and I think they've got they're playing with a chip on their shoulder right now, and it's probably the best thing for them. It's probably their motivator. So they will be the number one out of that region, and they'll be playing Tennessee Tech. Tennessee Tech's 26-5 out of their region. Congratulations on making the tournament, but you got to play South Carolina. So first round exit. Yeah, congratulations on making it, but you got to play South Carolina. And then our next matchup, we got Utah versus Indiana. This is the 8 versus the 9. This is probably going to be one of the best matchups out of the first round. So, I mean, obviously they're right there by each other in seeding, so they're going to be pretty similar tiered teams. Utah, a team that they lost their star to the draft last year, Alyssa Peely, got drafted to Minnesota. And then they also lost their coach to the LA Sparks. So didn't know what they were going to look like. And they joined the Big 12. So didn't know what Utah was going to look like going into this season, but they still fared very well. Indiana, a team that has been ranked some this season, but they lost some of their spark towards the end of the season. I'll say that. So but I think they're very similar tiered teams, and this could be one of the best matchups out of the first round. Then we got Alabama, the 5 seed versus the 12 Green Bay. Alabama's a really physical defensive team and have a huge presence in the lane. Green Bay, though, there's something about them that just really special that they made the tournament. I don't know that they pull off the upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if they did.
I think if it's a low-scoring game, they're more likely to have the upset. Okay. So if they play good D, which they do, and if it's a lower-scoring game, I think they have more of a chance. If it's a high-scoring game, they're not winning.
Agreed.
Okay. All right, now we move over to the next matchup. So this is the 4 versus the 13. This is Maryland versus Norfolk State. So this is one that I think could be a first-round upset. Norfolk State can shoot the ball. They're also similar to NC State, a run and gun type of offense. So you will have to slow them down and the pace of the game to be able to win that matchup.
Agreed. And Coach Brenda Freeze will have the Lady Terps going, at all costs because she's another outstanding coach and she knows how to get the job done when the going gets tough.
I agree with that. No, I'm a huge fan of Brenda Freeze. I know that I've seen a lot of people say that maybe her coaching style was outdated. She's just tough. But she's a culture builder. She's not somebody that's going to cater to the portal. She's going to do her recruiting, and she's just tough as nails. I've always respected her. So I do think that she will have the girls ready to go for this matchup. I just think it is an interesting matchup for that 4-13 that, I think Norfolk State, they're fast, man. You got to slow them down.
Agreed.
All right, then in our next matchup in the 6 versus the 11, we got West Virginia versus either Columbia or Washington. I do think that Columbia probably makes it to that matchup. However, West Virginia, a team that has looked really good in the last 5 seasons. They have a coach who was Krista Gerlich's assistant coach. Krista Gerlich is the head coach of Texas Tech. They were together. They were coaching together at West Texas A&M University, which is the D2 school about 20 minutes from here. So love to see the 806 connection there on the big scale, and he's put together a really great program there at West Virginia. Now, they're not going to be the team that is a top 10 team, but they're going to be ranked all year long, and they're going to hand out some key losses.
Yeah.
All right, then on our next matchup, we got North Carolina versus Oregon State. Oregon State last year was a really good team, and they had a early exit in their conference tournament, which was the last Pac-12 conference tournament, and they fired their coach immediately, even though they knew that they were going to be going into the March Madness tournament as a high seed because they still finished so well. Like, I think they went as a 3 or a 4 seed, and had to play with a completely different coach. And then now there's no Pac-12. I don't see them winning this matchup.
No, well, I like North Carolina. They lost to NC State in the semifinals. They knocked off Florida State in the quarters. They beat Boston College in their first round matchup. So,
Right.
North Carolina is, they want to prove that loss to NC State is no fluke.
Right.
And, North Carolina, incredible record this year, 27-7, 12-4 at home at Carmichael Arena. So, obviously, I live here in North Carolina, so I can't go against the Tar Heels. So give me North Carolina in this matchup against Oregon State. And it was weird to see Oregon State now in the WCC, but
Right.
I think they've transitioned quite well. It was their inaugural year, but we'll see what happens down the road with the Beavers.
Okay. All right, our next matchup, we got Vandy versus Oregon. This is the 7 versus the 10, Vandy being the 7. Vandy is a team that I respect on both the men's and the women's side. If you don't know, that gym doesn't have air conditioning. So those kids are conditioned for anything. And that proves successful many times. So we'll see. I mean, I don't think they're a top team out of the SEC, but they're definitely a mid team that can hand out a serious loss.
I'll agree. And you look at what Vanderbilt is 22-10. Oregon is 19-11. Their inaugural year in the Big Ten after transitioning over from the Pac-12, which is still weird to not have the Pac-12 anymore. But
Right.
The Big Ten conference is never an easy conference in women's basketball. So I think Vanderbilt will find a way to get the job done over Oregon.
Okay. And then we have Duke versus Lehigh. So Duke, the ACC champion this year. What a run for them. It was a really great tournament. And what I thought was most special was the young lady that won the MVP was actually, she comes off the bench. So she's their 6th woman. I think that's really special when you can count on your bench just as much as you can count on your starters. And I mean, not that their starters didn't play well, because they all played well, but that coming off the bench like that, she really had to fight for that award. And then they also have another young lady with the last name Donovan, and she is she kind of reminds me of Draymond, to be honest. She can guard any position. She's not going to put up a lot of points, or it's not going to necessarily reflect on the stat sheet what she can do, but she's definitely a defensive presence.
And if you go on Herb FM Sports Radio, and if you go to YouTube, search Herb FM Sports Radio, Jordan Donovan was on the show that I do last night with Chris Heidel and myself. Really nice young lady to talk with. She's around a sensational coach in Carol Lawson. We know about her outstanding career, as a player and then as a broadcaster and now as a coach. She's got the Blue Devils cranking on all cylinders at this point, and I think Duke can make a run.
Absolutely.
Well, I think before Kari, you get on, because I know you're going to switch to your conference. There's only a couple minutes left. I unfortunately have to bow out. I have another show I'm going to be on. You guys have a great rest of the show, and go women. Watch these women. The final game this last year was watched for the women's more than the men's game was.
Yes, it was.
So,
I watched. So I will be watching. So it's always nice to talk to you.
Nice talking to you. See
Good
you.
luck.
Have a great week.
Thanks, Andy.
Oh, Megan, you're muted.
Excuse me. Let's slide over to the other Spokane region, Kari.
All right. So I a little different than you guys did. So mine's probably going to be shorter, but I'll try to do a little something different.
Okay.
I went looking at, we always hear about the Cinderella teams and what that is, and I looked, and one of the definitions I found was any team that is not in the top numbers is what they're going to classify as a Cinderella. So successful run in, so more than the bottom half of the bracket, and then they go farther in there. I'm looking at the Athletic, and they said for a purpose of our exercise, let's consider Cinderella pick 9 seed or lower, as those seeds are typically first round underdogs. Which teams should you keep track of and learn just about before the start of the game? So in my bracket, it is number 10 South Dakota State.
Mm-hmm.
They have wins against Creighton, Oregon, and Ball State, which are also in the team or in the tourney. So those South Dakota State is going to be the one team you kind of want to watch and see how far they can go.
Right.
That's the Cinderella team pick for this bracket. We have our top 4 teams, ranked teams in the bracket is Southern California, UConn, Oklahoma, and Kentucky. And if you've ever watched any ball, women's or men, those are significant teams that are generally there. Speaking of which, we have a team for the first time since 1987 that did not make the women's tournament.
Yeah.
So finds themselves in a brand new position, and that they're watching, probably going to be in the NIT, I would guess, or the women's version of that. I think it'll be picked up somewhere, but that is quite a shock to see a perennial to have to be on the outside.
Right.
And I would go over all these, but I think that I want to kind of let Megan take and run with the last bracket. The one thing I do want to say, and we've talked about it on each section, is while there are some very phenomenal, fun games to watch, and some will be very one-sided, my favorite games are always going to be those that are ranked from 6 to 10, and watching those matchups, because that's where grit meets passion, and who's going to dig it out. Typically, is it always a no? But that's where you watch the determination and grit and passion for the game play at its most, because they feel like they should have been ranked higher, or kind of dismissed because of their ranking. And that, honestly, if you're wanting to watch true passion, that's about the level, the rankings, that if you have time for just a few, those are the rankings that you want to look at, because in that first round especially, they're playing for blood, they're playing for the whole ball of wax, because they feel like they've been slighted.
I think out of this region, what I'm most excited to see, if it were to happen, is OU versus UConn, and that would be your Elite 8 matchup, or no, Sweet 16 matchup, excuse me. And if that happens, that is a matchup that I'm really looking forward to out of that region.
That would be quite the matchup.
Yeah, it's called. For me, I want to see how Iowa does. In the NCAA tournament, year one without Caitlin Clark, they go up against Murray State, who won the Missouri Valley Conference championship, and the Missouri Valley Conference. It doesn't matter if it's men's basketball or women's basketball. That conference is one of the top mid-major conferences in the country. They play hard every single night.
My the local college and the one that university and the one I graduated from is Missouri State.
Yes, of course.
And they've been at the conference forever. And you would think some of the Creighton, for one, I don't think they're there anymore, but Creighton was there. It was a powerhouse. But there's other teams in this conference.
Yeah, it's called. I'm gonna date myself. I'm gonna go back when Missouri State was known as Southwest Missouri State, and they had a young lady named Jackie Stiles, and she was when she
Melody
played.
Graduated from my high school and was my sister's best friend.
Oh wow! Very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
It's called when Jackie Stiles played. All eyes were on her every night, to see how she would do. So, so it's nice to see, Murray State who transitioned from the Valley over from the Ohio Valley Conference,
Right.
To see how they'll do up against Iowa, strong team out of the Big Ten. So I've got Iowa winning this game over Murray State. And if it does come up between Oklahoma and UConn, folks, get your popcorn ready.
Right.
Because that could go down into overtime or perhaps double overtime, because Paige Becker is one of the best players in the country. And if you've never seen UConn play this year, find a way to watch them, because they are a sensational team under legend head coach Gino Oriyama.
And I think something that has been missing for UConn in the first part of this season and then for the last two seasons has been health. It's been such an issue for them. And that is not the case right now. They're healthy. They're in sync with each other. They beat South Carolina and in South Carolina by 29 points. Like, they're definitely on a tear. But then you got Reagan Beers over there at OU, and she's just astronomical to watch. So I agree. I think that get your popcorn ready. If that's the matchup that happens, then very excited to see it. All right, so let's slide over to the last region. We're going to go Birmingham 3, your 1 seed, Texas. Now, I don't know that, if we would have got the 2 seed, I would have been okay with that, because the 1 seed there was a lot of drama behind who should be the 1 seeds. Should UConn have gotten the 1 seed possibly? Should USC been the 3rd 1 seed and then UConn slide in right there? There's a chance for that. And I wouldn't have been mad if we would have been the 2 seed. So we did end up with the 1 seed, and we are going to either play High Point or William and Mary. I believe that we will be playing High Point. This is the first time that the women's program has made it to the tournament. So congratulations to them. They're one of the schools, one of the 24 that has both the men's and the women's in there. So they're not beating Texas, either one of those schools. So enjoy the game and the spotlight, and, good round. Congratulations on making the tournament.
Yep.
So, then our next, that's the 116. And then in our next matchup, we've got the 8 versus the 9. So that's going to be Illinois versus Creighton. I like Creighton in this matchup, but Illinois is a tough team. So it could go either way. I do think that Creighton doesn't quite have the same level of competition in their conference. So their record might be somewhat misleading because they're in the Big East. That's like playing the Church League and UConn. Just what it is right now. Villanova was good a few years ago, but that was because Maddie Seagrass was there, and she's not there anymore. And the competition just is not that fierce in the Big East right now. So that could be their downfall there.
It's basically UConn and everybody else right now in the
right. Then in the next matchup, in the 5 versus the 12, this one is interesting. You got Tennessee versus South Florida. So while I'm incredibly impressed with Tennessee this season, I will say that our Texas's victory over Tennessee this season was one of the hardest fought games that we played. They played us very tough, and their coach has a I don't know, I don't want to call it a habit, but what she does is instead of subbing out 1 to 2 ladies, she subs out all 5 of them, and she hits you with a whole fresh legs for everybody that's out there, and it is intense. She'll do that with 2 minutes left in the fourth, and you got all 5 ladies out there with fresh legs for Tennessee. So it's hard to beat that. It is. She is a basketball savant in my mind. So,
And I believe Kim, and correct me if I'm wrong, Megan, I think Kim Caldwell during the season had to miss a game because she had a baby, and then the next game she returned.
Right. So hey Timothy. So Kim was actually not coaching that matchup versus Texas. That was the second game that she had missed. She only missed 2 games, I think, maybe 3, and came right back after having a baby. So shout out to her being superwoman right there. But that coach her assistant still used her system against Texas, and it was not successful, but almost successful. So against a very tough team. So Tennessee, a good team, but South Florida, as of lately, can't lose. So I think this could be an interesting matchup. I do have Tennessee coming out on the other side of it. However, I think it'll be a good game.
I think looking, I've got the ESPN bracket in front of me, and they've got Tennessee right now is a 19.5 point favorite over South Florida. So we'll see if that goes down. But I like Tennessee in this matchup versus South
I do
Florida.
think that they'll be successful. I just think it'll be a competitive game. Then we've got the 4 versus the 13. We got Ohio State versus Montana State. Ohio State should get past that matchup pretty easily.
Easy win.
I think it'll be pretty similar to years of past for OSU. Elite 8, Sweet 16 is probably your ceiling. All righty. Sliding over to our next matchup, we've got Michigan versus either Iowa State or Princeton. I love Audie Crooks. Y'all know this. She's just amazing to watch. She doesn't have a lot of help around her this year. So I think Princeton's going to get the win over Iowa State. And then in having to play Michigan next, I would pick Michigan. Michigan is a team that they got hurt with the portal last year by my team. We took their 3 best players, and so they bounced back in an incredible way, and they look really good this season. And I didn't expect that, to be perfectly honest. So I'm going to go with Michigan on that matchup. And then you got Notre Dame versus Stephen F. Austin. So this is the 3 versus the 14 matchup. I think Notre Dame will be just fine with that matchup, but I am concerned about how Notre Dame looks against ranked opponents. So I think we're probably on a crash course to see either Notre Dame versus Texas or TCU versus Texas in the Elite 8 matchup. But we shall see. So then the next this portion.
And
Go
folks,
ahead, Adam.
It's called, and folks, Hannah Hidalgo. Remember that name? It's called, if you never watch her play, watch her play. When she gets drafted into the WNBA, she'll be a star, like we've seen from Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese. So Hannah Hidalgo, what a gal that's out there in South Bend for Notre Dame.
Agree. Absolutely agree. That 3-headed monster there for Notre Dame and Olivia Miles and Sonia Citron, they're so good together and coached incredibly well. Also, coach needs to figure out her rotations a little bit better against these ranked opponents and get her mojo back. So this is that matchup where you get your mojo back. All right, then this is the region where it gets real messy for the committee. They decided that they were going to put Louisville, Haley Van List's former team,
Yep.
in the same region as the team she plays for right now, TCU. So TCU just won the Big 12 tournament. Congratulations to them. They were a team last year. I don't know if you remember this, Carrie. You remember me talking about TCU lost all 4 of their starters, and they ended up pulling some ladies that a couple of them had won state championships, but they weren't playing ball in college. And they pulled a young lady from the volleyball team, and then I think the track team too. So they went through it pretty tough to get to where they're at now. And I really, really like their coach a lot. While we're on the subject of TCU, I always have to chime in and say that I don't think Prince deserves a roster spot on any team. So for her off-court antics. So I'll leave it at that. But that's my opinion on that. So we could see Louisville versus TCU in the second round. Louisville will have to play Nebraska in the first matchup. This is your 7 versus your 10. I've had a chance to see Louisville play in person this year. Another run and gun type of team, but Nebraska is a full court press 24/7 type of team. Nebraska is very tough. So I might go with Nebraska in that for the upset. Adam said no.
I like what Jeff Walsh has done up there in Louisville, and I want to see the matchup Louisville versus TCU to see
Right.
rather than this old team play your new team, because folks, TCU has a shot to cut down the nets and bring Homenati to Fort Worth. I will just say that right now.
All right, then in our last one for this region, you're going to have TCU versus FDU. Fairlane Dixon versus TCU. I think TCU will have this pretty handily. We shall see what TCU is really made of, because while they won the Big 12, I will say on the women's side, the Big 12 doesn't have the same level of level of competition in that conference as compared to the Big 10, ACC, and SEC. So, hold on one quick. So, Timothy, we actually had already talked about your Blue Devils, and we definitely have them as a chance to win it all. So, we shall see. We shall see.
Well, to be honest, the 12 has not, even before when Missouri was still part of it, has not been a hyper competitive in the women's sport as the men's. I did see, Mizzou is obviously no longer, they're part of the SEC now, but Mizzou's even fired. They've already, haven't fired yet, but they're already stating they're going to put more time, effort, and money into the program to bring it up to the caliber it needs to be. So, the Big 12 has been lacking, and I would be excited to see that kind of pick up and be a more competitive. It
was competitive, but it was basically TCU sometimes, but Baylor, Texas, and OU. That was your perennials there in the Big 12, and that was about it, So it's been a while since the Tech ladies were really good. Obviously we're going to see on the 25th, Leah Chavez is going to announce where she's going, and Texas Tech is still in the running. So if Texas Tech lands Leah Chavez, I think that the competition in the Big 12 will start pulling more. So we'll see. But I do think that our champion is probably going to come out of the Big 10 or the SEC.
I would say yes to that.
But I mean, like Timothy said, you can't count out Duke. Can't count out NC State. So there's some AC. Can't count out Notre Dame. I don't know who's going to win, y'all. It's really up in the air this year. I love that.
And honestly, we want these competitions to, as viewers, as fans of when there are the blowout games, those I kind of tend to lose interest in. When you're playing championship and you get a blowout game, it's not a lot of fun to watch the underdog claiming that bad. At least for me, because I've always aligned myself with the underdog out there. But we do want to see competitive from top to bottom. We don't want to see dead games.
Right.
So we want to see, while it is hard to then say, well, this one without any doubt is going to be there. It's fun to watch.
When that doesn't happen.
Right.
Right.
Or captivating and draws in the viewership.
I agree.
Yeah. And you look
All
at
right, so we like to end on a happy story, and so the happy story I think this year, or well, this week's show, but this is the first year the ladies actually get to make money off of playing in the tournament, and so finally at a point where it's looking like equity is not only attainable, but it is being obtained. So really excited for that, and just man, so excited for the tournaments this year.
Yeah. Can I get my Final Four real quick?
You got to use March Madness.
It's called, all right. In my Final Four, I have got I have UCLA, USC, South Carolina, and in Texas.
I love that.
And
I love that.
And in the end, it's going to be a battle of USCs. Juju Watkins goes up against Dawn Staley.
Okay.
And in the end, Dawn Staley cuts down another national championship and takes it home to Columbia, South Carolina, where she can party all night long with South Carolina Gamecock supporters, Darius Rucker and Hootie and the Blowfish. And she can, since her Philadelphia Eagles, they did win the Super Bowl. So
right.
For Dawn Staley, let the party continue down there in Columbia, South Carolina. So I have got the South Carolina Gamecocks over Juju Watkins and the USC Trojans in the national championship game.
I like it, Adam. Very, very good chance of that happening. And we have some of our first 4 games starting tonight and tomorrow. So make sure y'all are tuned into that. And we will be back next week and we will talk about the first round.
Yes, we will.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, everybody.